God. So imagine having to have a whole conversation with your 7-year-old about why Abraham Lincoln got attacked, because that's the words they used, attacked. And they're like, right now my son, they're in the part of their lesson, their school year, talking about, you know, the slavery and all of that, and the Civil War and stuff. And I understand they have to water it down so the children can digest it. But I asked him today, how does he feel about what he's learned so far? And he said he doesn't understand why somebody will attack a person for progression. And I was telling him, and he said, isn't Abraham Lincoln the hero? I said, he's a hero in some sense, but you know, most people believe Abraham freed the slaves because he liked black people. And I told him today, I was like, Abraham Lincoln didn't free the slaves. And I don't even think it was just him. I don't know the intricacies of everything, but in a nutshell, he did it for progression. He did it because the South needed to come up out of the old days and start using and get industrialized, right? For progression. And my son was like, well, what's so bad about that? I said, because it threatened the way of life for some people here in the South. He said, the South. I said, yes, Texas, like the whole southern third coast, right? And I told him, I said, it threatened their livelihood because that's all they knew. And I had to tell him, you got to understand that the way they've been living, and predominantly most people, it wasn't just during that time, it's been generations of past. It's how they've been living. So when somebody's livelihood is threatened, when their stream of income is threatened, they get up in arms like anybody would, right? But the thing about it is they weren't getting up in arms about somebody taking their job because they were out picking cotton. They were up in arms because the only way of life they knew outside of what they were taught as kids and, you know, growing up, was slave labor. This is how you make a living. Just like everybody teaches their kids today, you need to do the A, B, C, and D to be able to make it in the world. Okay, that's how they were raised. So it's not that people were evil. I said children, because he asked, are kids born racist and evil? I said, no, they're not born racist and evil. They're born loving each other. It's their parents who teach them to be different. And it's because that's what they were taught. And I just like, Jesus, I just know, because as you get older, because in middle school they start talking about Jim Crow and all of this, I had to tell him, I had to break it down, and I had to tell him, I said, first off, because he said it's very long ago, it was so long ago. I said, no. I said, like, your grandfather, who's alive today, has experienced segregation, Jim Crow, like all of that. He's experienced all of that. He's alive today. So it wasn't that long ago. It's still in the lifetime of people who are alive today. You can ask him about it. But I also had to tell him, because he was asking me about his teachers, are they racist? And I had to tell him no. And if they are, they're never going to come out and show it to you. But I can guarantee you no. I said, every person that is white is not racist. Every person that is white is not biased or have any biases against anybody outside of their race. I said, there are people that are, though, you know, and you don't have to look for those people, because they're going to show you who they are from jump. You don't even have to figure it out, because they don't know how to keep their mouth shut. They will tell you, right? And then I had to also tell them, like my grandfather told me, you have to also understand, during those time periods, even the people that liked black, brown, Asian, Indian, all of the other races, even the white folks that loved us, right? They could not come out saying that, portraying that, because they were at risk of losing everything that they owned and how they would take care of their family. So you have to understand why some white people, or some people to this day, still have that inherent fear that if they show love and compassion to other races outside of their own, that their own people may turn on them. There are some people who really feel like that, even though it's pretty evident that that's not what's going to happen to them. But you don't know their thought process. You don't know their inner circles. You don't know their family. You don't know who they're raised around. Like, it's a lot. That's why I tell people, I said, just because somebody is a certain race, you can't automatically stack a label on them and put them in a box. Because just like my grandfather, he's 72. No, he's 74. When he was in college, he was dating this white woman that he met when he was in New York. His family was scared to death that he was gonna get hung. I swear to God, they thought they was gonna find him by a tree, hung by a tree. So the fear broke them apart, right? And because he was telling me, he was saying that black folks were fearful, white people were fearful, and we were all scared of the same thing. The crazy people. It wasn't that everybody was racist and stuff. People were scared to death of what was going to happen to them. And I already know people are going to be like, don't downplay this and try to make it seem like we were all in this together. I'm not. What I'm saying is, and you can ask your elders, because what they teach in the textbook is vastly different from when you ask your grandma and your great-grandpa and your great-grandma. Ask them. They'll tell you that there were blacks, Mexicans, Asians, whites that literally was doing the Underground Railroad during Jim Crow, something similar. They were all trying to figure, all those people that were saying that had a brain were trying to figure out how to get the hell up out of there and how to move forward in life and live life without losing their lives, without being excluded from society, because you just couldn't do it. The times are different. And so, like I had explained, long story short, I had to send him into school today with confidence that all your friends, all that are different colors, different shades of brown and cream and pink, because my son, like a lot of other children in elementary school, unless they were told, they don't look at people like how adults that are aware are looking at people. Like when I told him that he was black, he fought me tooth and nail and told me he was not black, that he was brown. And I was like, okay, because I didn't want him to go into the world, thinking that everybody is the same and likes you for who you are, because that is not the truth. But that's what they tell you in elementary school, because those kids deserved a fresh slate. They deserve to be able to go to school and not feel any type of anything pertaining to what race, like their skin and what they look like, is why somebody doesn't like you. If somebody doesn't like you, is because it needed to be because their personality was trash, they're mean, not because of the color of their skin, right? So elementary, they don't really bring up their race to them, right? They don't really do that. They actually let the parents do that, and it shows whose parents make it evident. But I was telling him that he was black. He told me that my dad's white, his dad's white, Jericho is looks like the color of a Frappuccino. He's the color of he's the color of toffee, and then I'm the color of a Hershey bar. He says, but the color black isn't what we are. And it was a whole thing. So long story short, this is getting really long. It's almost 10 minutes. I had to send him in confidence that his teacher does not like him because he's black or not her color. I had to tell him that Abraham Lincoln is dead and gone. I don't know him personally, but he wasn't a horrible person, but he was a progressive person, and people didn't like him for being progressive. And I said, all your friends that are in your classroom that y'all are able to talk and mingle together, I said, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I said, he was the catalyst of what you're seeing today. Because if he didn't do what he did, the South would probably still be in a different state than what it is today. And I said there wouldn't have, and I don't think we would have had desegregation and all of this type of stuff. But I also told him, I said, you're gonna learn as you go through school and life who's for you and who's not. And you don't do it and you don't look for it in a sense where, do they like me because of my color of my skin? You don't go through life. I don't go through life like that. My grandparents raised me. Like I said, my grandpa is 74 and my grandmother, God rest her soul, was 67 at the time when she passed. But they raised us that if somebody calls you the N-word, you don't let it faze you, because those people have been taught wrong, and that they are just, those kids don't know any better. They don't even know what it is, and they're just listening to what their parents say. I asked him, has anybody called you that? He said no. And he was like, he's got a friend that's really, I like this guy. He's this kid. His friend, all he talk about is Jesus. All he talk about is Jesus, which is great. And Sinatra doesn't call people white or black or Hispanic or anything. He calls you by what he thinks what your skin color is. So he called this kid, the guy, I forgot the little boy's name, but he said he's got brown eyes and sandy, like light brown hair and pink skin. I was like, okay. So he doesn't describe people by what we would as adults, by our race. He doesn't. When he sees a Hispanic kid, he always says the Hispanic kid with the, he says, not the Hispanic, he said that the real light brown kid with the good food. I was like, that is so funny. But they be having good food, and we know they be having good food. But anyways, long story short, my kid isn't going through life afraid that somebody's gonna attack him or try to keep him from being able to do what he wants to do because of his skin color. I'm not raising him up to be fearful like that. That's just, who wants to live like that? And I understand you're like, well, a lot of people live like that. Yes, but why? If we're trying to move forward in life, I think the kids that are coming up today, I say give them a fair chance. Really, I wouldn't have taught racism and all that type of stuff this early. I would have waited till middle school when they had a better understanding. But then again, some things just need to just wait until the brain is developed fully. Some things need to wait until there's better understanding, because you can create a generation of kids that have biases or have thoughts that they shouldn't be thinking. Is a distraction, in my opinion. Like, I remember growing up and we were taught in middle school, I remember sitting in my history class when they were talking about Jim Crow and feeling so uncomfortable, because it's like, this didn't happen 1,000 years ago. This happened when my grandma and my mom were young, like in their lifetime, like it was so uncomfortable. It's such a recent history, and it was a distraction from other things, because I'm looking around. If I'm being judged, am I being looked at because of my skin color? Is that why so and so is acting like this? Is that why? It's a distraction, and I don't feel like that's something that kids should have to think about when they're trying to get their grades up or get through school. And also, it complicates their learning when it comes to being social, because now we don't know how to act and move because we just had a really hard class that made it feel hard. That's all I'm saying. This has been a long video, but long story short, just be careful of how we need to be careful how we present things to the kids at such a young age, because with kids that are in elementary school, we have such a huge opportunity to really change the trajectory of the future of our country, hell, the world. If we don't start them off worrying about their race and start them off worrying more about technology and how to get ahead on that, and how to be innovative and think critically and, be creative, and we start pushing more of that type of stuff and leave the other heavy stuff for when they're older and actually understand what is going on, I think we would be better off. And I think our social dynamics between children in elementary, middle will be so much better. And in high school, we would see a whole different type of student. You know what I'm saying? More not so worried about their race and more worried about who can create this type of tech faster than the next, who can do this, who can do that, innovation. That's what we need to be talking about. But yes, there are real issues, there are real issues, and I'm not trying to discredit that, and I'm not trying to make it seem like it's not important. But for me, I think at this age, I need them to get the basics. I need my kids, reading, writing, language, interactions, social interactions, understanding the basics of existence. Middle school, then we get into the next level of that, right? Then when we get into like high school and or the end of middle school, we could start bringing in some heavier things. But really, we need to be focused on tech. We need to be focused on innovation and making sure our kids here, at least in America, are on par, if not above average, with other countries, that their kids are well above average in a lot of areas. That's what we need to be worried about. And the other things, obviously, because there's a whole thing about people erasing history of the black experience. It'll never be erased. It won't be, because we still have some people's great grandparents are still here, grandparents are here, and parents are here, and everybody's gonna teach the history about their people. They're going to teach it. We ain't got to worry about that. We don't have to worry about that. What we need to worry about is getting past that. Somebody's gonna drag me to hell and back. We need to get past that and start getting to the point where we need to, like I said, we need to be worried about our technological future. That's what we need to be worried about. I'm worried about the tech, because I feel like we're going to fall behind because we still worried about what happened in 1750, or 1940 or 1960s. And I know somebody's going to be like, because it's important and it affects us today. It does. And, that's unfortunate. But if we can't, not just us as Black people, but us as Americans and as just people in general, if we can't seem to get past that, how the hell are we gonna, I'm trying to figure out how we're just gonna be repeating everything over again. Our kids are gonna grow up fighting the same fight that we didn't win. And I'm not talking about Black people, I'm talking about people in general. White, Black, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, all of that. Our kids are just gonna repeat the lives in the fight that we just lived, that we're living when they're at our age. And who wants that? That's redundant. It's kind of like psycho, crazy. What we need to do is clean slate it. And I understand systematic racism and stuff, but I'm going to also say there's a lot of systematic racism going on, but there's also a lot of excellence going on across all races. I've seen people of all different races and backgrounds excel. And we're not just talking about academically. I'm talking about financially, in all aspects. So we can't, I know I'm going to get dragged to hell. I'm telling you, to the depths. But we can't use, in my opinion, that as an excuse. Now there's so much technology, there's so much information out there. Anybody who's just out here being rude, mean, trying to keep opportunities away because of skin color is unfortunately, but they're not developed. They're not mentally developed, because we are so past this. We have so much to look forward to, so much progression happening. If you are stuck on somebody's skin color and why you don't want to give them a job, you have capped. you have peaked mentally, and that's unfortunate for you. But for the rest of us, we're gonna keep moving forward, and we're gonna make sure our kids are smart and ready to compete with the world. Because at the end of the day, our kids are gonna be competing with the other kids that are their age right now, just like we had to do. We're gonna have, and we want to make sure that our kids in America are on top. And I don't understand what the big deal is. I'm gonna shut up because I just know I'm about to get canceled. I just know I'm about to get canceled. But anyways, I sent my son into school with confidence and letting him know that yes, there are crazy people out here, there are bad people, but there's a whole lot of good people out here. It's a whole lot of good people. And I told him, like, everybody has their individual experiences, and I said, I'm not saying you'll never experience this, but don't go through life in school and base decisions off of, is somebody going to like me because of my skin color? I told him don't do that, because if I was to do that, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. Point blank period. And I'm so happy my grandparents taught me that.